Good morning, North America. Welcome to Church Talk TV. Lively talk about life, church, and church life. I'm your co-host, Dr. Bill Tenney-Britton, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Kris Tenney-Britton, and we're broadcasting from our studio in Columbia, Missouri, the heartland of America. Say good morning, Kris.
Well, good morning, and welcome to Church Talk TV.
Kris and Bill Tenney-Britton here today, and today we are talking about vision, which is one of our top subjects and one that we find near and dear to our heart, but we want to talk about the difference between your personal vision. You do have one, right? You know what your life vision is, you know what God's called you to do and where God is leading you. We'll talk about that in a minute. And your church's vision, which is not the same. Although, unfortunately, of course, the whole reason we're having this episode is because too often they get intermeshed and entwined, and it creates one heck of a big mess. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
So we want to be real clear up front. We're talking about vision, not mission.
Absolutely.
But just like a church has mission, again, we've talked about that so many times, we should have a mission too. Do you know what your mission statement is, or your mission, your purpose? So a mission is your purpose in life.
Yeah, my purpose in life has been, and I've identified it when I was a teenager, I'm about making disciples. That is what I do on a personal level, and it has guided me professionally all the way through. Well, once I finally decided I was going to chase that vision, because I took a couple detours. But when I was 24, that's my guiding purpose, and it's guided everything that I do. Every word that I write, every word that I speak is about making more disciples.
I've known you for 32 years. Actually, I've known you for 33 years now, over 33. We're celebrating 32nd anniversary this Saturday.
Week.
Yeah, the 25th. I think
Which
that's
is
Saturday.
Friday.
No, it's not. Let's see, Wednesday,
Yes,
Thursday,
it
Friday,
is.
Saturday.
Saturday, right, Friday. Yeah,
What did I say?
Yes, just what she said.
After 33 years. Okay, no, so all right. Anyways, that's one of the things I just really noticed in you when I first met you all those years ago. So yeah, and my personal mission statement is to equip, empower, and encourage, summed up in 3 words: equip, empower, and encourage leaders. Now let me go to vision with that, because the vision looks different at different times in our lives,
exactly.
right? So for me, and then I'll let you finally talk for yourself.
No, you're doing a good job.
Okay. So
you've done that for 32 years as well.
I know. No, I wouldn't say that. But anyways, so for me, it's been in different ways: equip, empower, encourage, and I've done that with children. I have done that in churches as a minister. I've done that in consulting. I did that with when I was in regional work, denominational work. But my target, if you will, the people with whom I worked, were different in that.
Right.
And currently, I'm getting to work with young people, and I'm equipping, empowering, and encouraging them in some way.
Who are in school suspension.
In school suspension, yes, we are. But part of my theory, and when I interviewed for that position, I said, my mission statement is equip, empower, and encourage. And I really feel like that's something that I can bring and work with these young people for. My investment is not just now, but it's to, as you all know, change the world for Jesus. So, I see it as adding to future leadership and what our world can be.
That's right. And you work with some of the most difficult kids in the school.
I do.
Because there is hope there. You are a person of hope. I've known that from the time immemorial. All right. So personal vision is different than mission, as she says. And the vision is, essentially, where are you going? What problems are you solving? What is it, and what setting, and so on.
Yeah,
and
how
so
are you
forth.
living out your life?
Right.
What are you
how
called
are you
to
living
do?
it? Right. Exactly.
Why are you created? I love that way of saying it. Right. For what have you been created? Why did God create you?
A church's vision, though, is, although it's similar, the church's mission has been given to us. It's not something that someone woke up one day that Jesus said that, you go and make disciples, you will be my witnesses, you're to be fruitful and multiply, not the words he said, but he does say to be fruitful. And the fruits of the spirits are great, but they're the benefits of the mandate of the church is to make disciples, to make more disciples and to make better disciples. And as I often say, a better disciple makes more disciples. that's how you can tell whether they're a better disciple or not.
But I want to jump in here because really, so you've got it nailed down there as with the mission. But the vision then is how different churches at different times in their lives live out that mission. So your mission is to create disciples. How you do that is going to vary congregation to congregation, and it's also going to vary by the season, if you will, of where your congregation is in this place.
And for me, the mission of Moses, given to Moses by God, was to set the Israelites free, the Hebrews actually free, to set them on this path and to let my people go, Pharaoh. And so that was the mission. The vision was to get them to the promised land. And that vision for the nation, the church, the congregation, when Moses was done, he got them to the border. He got them to that, to the river. And then his vision was complete. And it was handed over. The next vision, of course, was to take them into the promised land and to settle the promised land, etc. And that was Joshua's vision, if you will, try this again. It wasn't Joshua's vision. It was God's vision for the people. It was the people's vision, the congregation's vision, and Joshua was the leader to bring that vision into fruition. And so, again, vision changes, mission never does. Set the people free. Right. They will be a light to the Gentiles. Actually, that's probably more the mission of the Hebrews. But be that as it may, the vision changes you go. Vision, though, when it's your personal vision, and again, it changes as well, but that vision, if it becomes enmeshed with your church's vision, then you end up what we call, or psychologists call, enmeshment. And an enmeshment is when you have become so intertwined with your congregation that really you don't know where the congregation begins and you end, or vice versa. Okay, so I want to flesh that out a little bit. Yeah, please. You're good at that. This has so many different layers, and we're talking about this before we started, came on air, if you will, that we were talking about the need to take and break lots of this into different episodes. Right. This could be a whole course. In fact, I have a course on this. I do too. It's similar. You deal with one edge of it. Right. Right. I deal with my Growing Church Network. I work with a variety of folks on helping pastors discern their personal vision and their mission and getting self-differentiated. And you? I was thinking about the work I do, my teaching at the Center for Ministry and Lay Training at Phillips School of Theology, online, by the way. And the course I'm teaching it right now actually is called Overcoming Conflict, which so much of it, and I told you earlier, we were talking about this just Saturday, about enmeshment and whatnot. So let me try to bring this in a little bit. We have 20 minutes to finish this completely. Yeah, it's true. Okay, so I do want to bring that part about, the different the ways we are, the enmeshment. So it's like a marriage in a way, right? And so you have you and you have the church, and when you come together, you're moving around like this. What happens though is you end up like that. That's enmeshment, right? So hole here, but you're intertwined, right? Like this, but this is enmeshed when they become one. One of the great marriage metaphors that we've seen is the unity candle. Oh, yeah. And, in most marriage ceremonies that I've seen, when they talk about the unity candle, of course, they start off, they got the acolytes or the bride and the groom, they light their individual candles. And then during the service, they take them and they light a single candle. The two have become one. Now, here's where I differ. Most of the services I've seen, they put their candles down and they blow them out. We don't. We don't do that in the services we officiate. No. Because the two have become one as a team, but they are still individuals. Right. And they have their individual mission and vision, their individual purpose, their individual personalities, et cetera, et cetera. The two are one as a team, but they are still not enmeshed. They work as a team, which is, as you say, normally I would do this and not interlock them, but yes. When you interlock and you overlapped. Right. When you become overlapped, then And that's basically, it's a short stick from there to there. Okay, so
So I've talked to a lot of ministers along the way over these years that will say, well, I'm going there and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and da 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 da, and we're going to do specifically this, this, and that. But the church isn't on board. That every church they go to, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. And you come with this complete, not only an agenda, but exactly how it's going to fill out.
Right.
But the problem then becomes that your church, not only are they not on board, but each church, each congregation is different. Their visions are different. They may not know what their vision is necessarily.
Most churches don't.
Right, but they've been doing some things, certain ways, and you have to get in there and you look. Right, yeah, but you look at what are they doing, what's working. Now, that's a whole bunch of other stuff. But this is when we try to force our vision onto the church. And I've said this, to churches. People come in or ministers will come in and all of a sudden it's like their vision has to be the church's vision, right? Then the other part of that is where the church has its vision. The pastor comes in, and usually they don't have a vision in this case, and then the church gloms onto them. And when it's time for the minister to leave, they don't know what the heck to do because they've all been caught up in this.
And it really comes down to self-differentiation.
Yes.
And I want to jump, and I want to reorder this,
go ahead.
I think.
All right.
Let's talk about enmeshment and what happens when you're enmeshed, because it's one thing to talk about the theory behind it. Let's talk about what it looks like in a church when you're enmeshed. That's probably the easiest way to understand this. And that is, when you come to a pastor, you come to the church, and God so loved the world, he didn't send a committee. And so God will, leaders discern the vision. God says this is where we're going, and this is where you're taking them, etc. And that leader's job is to, discern the vision, to disseminate, to share the vision, to cast the vision, to get people's eyes lighting up and moving forward, inspiring that vision.
Inspiring.
And then the last, of course, is to help them attain that vision. Whenever any leader brings a vision to a congregation, then there's conflict, because not everyone signed in on that vision. And now it may not be ugly conflict.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a fight.
Hopefully.
Right. It doesn't have to be a fight, but it means there are people that I don't like this, I do like this. Okay. Now, and how you handle that and how that's handled is a whole other thing. But here's what happens. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just want to jump and say how you handle it really is a measure of if you're a healthy congregation or you're not.
And if you're an effective leader or you're not.
No, that I disagree with that. I really do disagree with that. The bottom line is there are different stages, different phases of leadership, or not leadership, of conflict. And there are congregations, because every congregation has conflict.
Right.
But how is it, do you work it out? Do you work it out between people, with committees? Do you talk? Do you dialogue? Right?
Do you have ways for dealing with it?
Does it just happen? You just deal with it and whatnot. It's when it starts to get out of hand, and that's been the norm.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's why bullies hang out at churches, because the church won't do anything with them.
Right.
They let them continue to be bullies.
But we're going to talk about that, or we have talked about that before. Go back, enmeshment.
Right. So when there's this enmeshment, and because you got this vision, you've cast the vision, and you've got conflict. In most churches, when they have conflict, the bullies come out of the woodwork, or the controllers, or the guerrillas, or whatever, the terrorists, etc. They come out of the woodwork, and they begin, to create problems. Right? Okay. If the church is not healthy, then they get an upper hand. But here's where the enmeshment comes in. It's when the pastor is so enmeshed with the congregation, with their vision, that it begins to erode their self-esteem. It erodes who they are, because the church's vision is here, and my vision is here. And the church is, if you will, the vehicle that God has called me for now to lead, to achieve their vision. And my job as a pastor is to help them bring their vision, the vision that I've brought or that God has brought, and to lead them forward. But so my vision is to help them achieve their vision. But when it becomes this, then my self-esteem is wrapped up in whether they decide they can do this or not, or whether they do it or not, and my whole life falls apart, or my ministry falls apart, or whatever, because I'm enmeshed, and I go home sick to my stomach. I stop being effective, et cetera, et cetera. Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to feel crummy when someone attacks you or attacks your vision or all that. I'm not saying that someone who's truly self-differentiated, they don't feel those things, but it doesn't decimate them. They go home, they cry, they cuss, they do whatever. They dust themselves off and say, here's the situation. What do I do now? And that's healthy. What's not healthy is when we're so enmeshed that we go down the toilet or we go to the skylight, and that their success becomes our success, and that ends up the breeding ground for narcissism, or hyperactive ego. Look what I did. No, that's your vision. That's what God's called you to do. Anyway, so that's what enmeshment looks like, especially in the face of opposition.
Okay, so I want to make 3 points out of that.
Okay,
One
good.
of the wonderful things to do when one must go home and cry is to turn Twyla Paris on repeat to sing "The Warrior is a Child." It is an amazing song, and I have played that on repeat for 2 hours sometimes. It's just a wonderful song. It's very, very old. The Warrior is a Child, Twyla Paris.
Those are the times that I excuse myself and go out for 2 hours.
No, it's when I'm I'm driving or something from a really tough consult
Right,
or something. Yep. Or, we've been in churches that have beat us up, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah,
or where we're frustrated just to tears, right? All of that. Anyways, that's one thing I wanted to say. So the other 2 parts of this that I want to point out is that you've got to be really clear about your vision so that when you interview with a church, it's not only that you share your vision, right? Because you may or may not, but you have to listen really closely. And you have to measure. Yeah, you have to measure.
Is this the place for me to do this?
Right. So I know in systems like the United Methodist Church and some of the others, you don't get that. You don't get that kind of input.
You don't get the first right of refusal. Right. Well, you do, but only once.
But only once, right? And you just need to have clarity when you're in that position, because that's the second point. And when you're in a congregation or a denominational office, whatever, when you're working there, and it could be anywhere, not just in the church, and you realize that your call, if you will, your vision is different than where you are, where you've accepted, then it's time for you to step out. When the church, in this case, the church, small c or big C, decides to go in a different direction, then you say, it's time for me to step out. That is a hard thing to say. I did that at a pastorate where You had doubled the church. We were almost tripled at that church.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
it was
then
amazing.
Suddenly that church says we're going off a different vision.
Right. It was like, we're going to do this because conflict was there. It was historic. And what I realized and what I said up front was that, the church needed grief therapy and they needed conflict intervention, neither one of which I could bring, right? Because one, I too am a growth pastor. That's why I would go in, or a growth minister, growth consultant, right? So number one was that not only had their vision changed, or it was in the process, or they decommitted, really, quite honestly, decommitted to the vision that we were on board with. And then the other was what they needed was from somebody else, not me. And to not sugarcoat this for y'all, when it's time for you to leave, you have to step out because somebody else has a position there. The next step is there, and you're needed somewhere else.
Right, and they called the chaplain, and that church was closed.
Yeah, they did close. But, Bill Easom, our mentor, business partner, dear friend, is it a calling or a career? Is it a calling or a career, right?
If it's a calling, you have your vision, and is this the vehicle or not? And if this vehicle says, when you're interviewing, that's the best time to find out whether you're on board with it. But then, a lot of times let's not sugarcoat it, you get lied to. Oh yes, we want to do this. We are behind this, and they're speaking for them, but not the rest of the congregation.
Yes, that happens.
And they're also
all the
speaking
time.
to, we like the idea of growing as opposed to the reality of growing.
Right.
And so when they start growing, they're going, maybe not so much. And,
that's another episode too. We need to do that.
Anyway, but the reality is that when it's very clear your vision is no longer their vision, or they're not the vehicle for that vision, then it is time to step out. And again, very difficult to do, but it's mandate. You have to. Pastors ask, when can I tell when it's time? Well, if their vision is going this way and your vision in life is to do this, then it's probably time. In fact, if you're asking the question normally, it's past that time.
And you need to come talk to me. Make an appointment, right? I mean, that's what I specialize in that. Yeah, is that discerning? Is it time for me to go? Is it someplace? Is it a good place for me to be? How will this work out? We can talk about that. Yeah, I am very good at that.
All right. Okay. So that's what enmeshment looks like in sickness and in health, if you will. So let's talk a little bit about how do you discern, how do you come up with your personal vision? Okay. And you are an expert at this.
I am. Yeah, I am. So you look at your mission statement and there, what have you enjoyed in your life? What have you not enjoyed in your life? What makes your eyes light up? What are some of your experiences? God loves to redeem experiences, positive and negative. So what have some of those experiences been? What are you really good at? And maybe not, what are you not so good at? If you've got a church history, what have you done that you feel really good about and you feel has been successful? What would people say you've not been so successful at? And not just being mean, ugly people, right? But people who know you well. Another aspect is, what do they say you do well that you may not think you do well? So those are just some questions to get to your mission statement.
Well, and one of the just to add on to yours, one of the questions that I ask, because I do this not nearly as well as she does. She does a really good job. For me, it's a little partial thing. But one of the things is, what problems have you solved that you've really felt good about? That that you've seen an issue and you were able to solve that issue. That gives you a hint as to your vision. What is it? What is that process that you were successful at, and how does that steer you towards where you're trying to go?
Sure. So and for me, like to talk about in terms of my vision or my mission statement, that equipping, right? I love to teach people. I like to explain things and whatnot. I learned early on I was very good at that, and then I like to empower them. And I used to say, call it something else completely, but it's like empower them. It's not that I'm going to do everything. It's like, wow. And then encourage. Love to stand back and just say, way to go. You're doing great. Give the feedback. Even from afar, I do that for people that I haven't seen in a long time, but still am able to say, give words of encouragement. Then the whole piece, and this was really hard for me because I'd go someplace and think, well, that's all that I'm supposed to, that's what I'm supposed to do. And it took me a bit to realize this is who God's calling me to serve. And so for a long time, it was, I'm called to equip, empower, and encourage church leaders or leaders in the church. And so that I saw that as congregational. But then I realized, wow, it was beyond congregation. And it was a very wise, good mentor who helped me to recognize that. And then that has, again, also has shifted now as I've gotten towards, I'd say, retirement from congregational ministry, but it's been this natural progression. So what is your mission statement? Again, that word, what has God created you to be? And then, this is the key. Mission is, why has God created you, right? What has God created you to be? And then the vision is, what is Jesus calling you to do? So you get why you've been created, and then what is it that you're supposed to be doing? Where are you?
I guess
you
I don't
like that, eh?
No, because if the being doesn't result in doing.
Oh, it does. They're hand in hand.
Right, I know that, but when I'm just trying to put it into my space and say, okay, I was created to make disciples. Right. That there's no be there. That's a make. I'm created to do something.
Right. I understand that, and that is a being. Part of that. That is, I'm created to equip, empower, and encourage leaders or people for the kingdom. However we want to look at that. That's a doing thing. But the vision then is, where am I being called to do that
no argument
in this
there,
place and time?
But I heard
That's
you say,
what I'm saying.
Well, what I heard you say was the mission is your being. That's what you said.
Yeah.
And your
Why
vision
God
is
created you.
And so again, I don't see that as a being.
Right. So I'll go back and say it again this way. Why has God created you? And that can be a do, that can be, okay, why has God created you? And so that's kind of like this foundation, and how that works, like wherever you are, wherever it is that Jesus is wanting to use you or is going to use you, or hopefully is using you, that's the vision piece of it, and it will look different.
Right, and I want to wrap. We need to wrap this up.
Have
We're almost
to,
done.
yes.
But I want to say, so when you have a personal vision, and you're clear about your personal vision, the question is, what impact does that have on your leadership and on your decision making? And we've actually answered that question, but we haven't answered that question directly. So
Okay,
we want to be
explicit.
upfront. Okay, so when you have your vision and you're clear about your vision, then you're able to look at, if it's before you're going to a church, and for most of us that probably means we're already in a church.
Right.
But if you're interviewing, then it's the interviewing process to say, and to look at and say, does their vision, where they want to go, will that take me where God is calling me to go?
Will that allow me to go where God is calling me to go?
All right. Yeah,
or will it allow me to walk with others who are going to the same place, right? Because it sounds so selfish to me when I hear you. But when I hear you say,
right, no, I hear what you're saying.
will that let me go where I'm supposed to go? It's not that they're a vehicle for you.
Right, but with this caveat, and
Okay.
I don't disagree with you, but I do kind of disagree with you. You have to look at their vision or their mission.
Right,
and
I'm
again,
with you.
Again, and it's their mission, and are they living into it? And what has their vision been? And is this congregation going to be a vehicle that you can get in and drive? Remember, you're the leader, and you as a leader are in the driver's seat. Okay, God's the driver's seat. I get that. God's really the navigator, okay? God's not in the driver's seat. God's telling you where to go and you drive that car,
true.
okay? So you're in the driver's seat. And so is that the vehicle, and is where they are perceiving they want to go, need to go where God is calling them, does that match up with you? And if it doesn't, then they want to go here and you're called to go here. You're not the driver for this car. Let them find another bus driver. You go find the bus when you get in the driver's seat, y'all are agreeing where that destination is, or at least there's some semblance of agreement on that destination.
They're going to get on the bus.
Right, and so
Get on the
I do
bus,
disagree
y'all.
that it's not a vehicle. It is a vehicle. It is the vehicle,
Okay.
and you are the driver, but you can't go in there and hijack the bus.
Right.
Right,
You
okay.
got to be
The-
heading in the same direction.
Right. The bus has to have Walla Walla on the destination, and your vision says Walla Walla, and you go, okay, I can drive that bus there.
Right.
If it says New York, and you know you're supposed to go to Walla Walla, do not go on this bus and say we're going to Walla Walla.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? That's the point.
That's
Right.
exactly the point.
Right. I like that metaphor.
I love the bus.
Thank you, Jim Collins, for the bus metaphor and for us to be able to run with it. So hey,
we have to go. Oh my
we're
gosh,
out of
we're
time,
not there.
and we haven't even.
It's like
right.
points. We'll have like more episodes to come.
Yep, lots more to come. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Yeah, have a great week. Bye, and happy Thanksgiving. Tell somebody thank you somewhere along the line.